Today's recipe is a sweet potato cheesecake with a pecan praline topping. And I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Praline. I feel like praline is the right way to say it. At any rate, just watch. I mean, who really cares how you say it if it looks like that? Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Marta and I am the chef and author of Sense and Edibility, a site where I teach you everything you need to know about cooking, baking, and cocktail making. I'm bound and determined to be the queen of cheesecakes on the internet. Cheesecakes are a very beloved dessert in our family. Pralines I had for the first time I've had them before when I lived in Baltimore when I was going to culinary school. In the Inner Harbor, there was a little place called the Fudge Factory, I think it was called, and they used to make pralines on their little marble surfaces. Of course, I learned how to make them in culinary school, but I had the best pecan pralines in New Orleans when we took the twins for their 10th birthday, and it was a very memorable experience, those pralines. I genuinely think that the best pecan pralines are from New Orleans, and I'm not going to debate anybody about that because I'm right. But for this recipe, what I wanted to do was take the same flavor, the same brown sugar, buttery, caramelized flavor from pecan pralines, and I wanted to top a sweet potato cheesecake with it just because why not? I mean, there's really no rhyme or reason to it. I just felt like sweet potato and pecan pralines would be epic together, and I was right. So let me show you how to make my sweet potato cheesecake with pecan praline topping. Before we get into this video, don't forget to click the subscribe button so that you can be notified every time I post a new video. In the meantime, let's get into the recipe. Every amazing cheesecake starts with a crust. This one begins with graham cracker crumbs, and to the graham cracker crumbs, you're going to add granulated sugar. Now, if you don't like super sweet desserts, you can always omit the sugar because graham crackers already have sugar in them, right? Use your hands to toss the graham crackers, crumbs, and sugar together until they're well combined. And then to bind them, you're going to add melted unsalted butter. Again, just go in there with your hands, mix it together. When the graham cracker crust forms a clump when you squeeze it in your fist, you know it's good to go. Transfer this graham cracker mixture into a 8 or 9 inch spring form pan and just use the bottom of a measuring cup to press the graham cracker mixture into the bottom and about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch margin up the sides of the pan to form the crust. Bake the crust at a 350 degree oven for 10 minutes. That's 180 degrees Celsius. When it's done, take it out and wrap the bottom in 2 layers of heavy-duty aluminum foil and set it to the side. This cornstarch spice mixture is what's going to give our cheesecake some body. So to cornstarch, you're going to add ground cinnamon, ground nutmeg, and ground cloves. The cloves and the nutmeg are optional, but definitely use the cinnamon. Whisk these together with a whisk or a spoon and then set this aside. In a mixing bowl and with an electric hand mixer set to low, you're going to blend the cream cheese. This is room temperature cream cheese until it's smooth. Scrape down your bowl. You're going to scrape down your bowl frequently during this process. Add some granulated sugar and some kosher salt to the cream cheese in the bowl and blend these together until they're relatively smooth. Next, you're going to add 4 large eggs and the zest of 1 lemon. Blend it and scrape down your bowl again and then add pureed sweet potato. I have a video on my channel for how to roast and puree sweet potato. In addition to the sweet potato, you're going to add vanilla extract and then you're going to add that cornstarch mixture we mixed earlier. Go ahead and blend it together and then scrape down the bowl, blend it some more on low speed, and then pour the cheesecake batter into your prepared pan. Smooth out the top and bake the cheesecake in a Put the cheesecake pan into a larger pan and fill that halfway with boiling water. Go ahead now and bake the cheesecake for an hour and 15 minutes. Once it's done baking, prop the door open and allow the cheesecake to cool in the oven for an hour before removing it from the oven to cool completely at room temperature. Once it's cooled completely, then you transfer it to the fridge and chill it overnight. Toast some pecan halves for 10 minutes at 350 degrees. And while that's happening, let's make the praline topping. Add brown sugar, granulated sugar, kosher salt, baking soda, and vanilla extract, along with evaporated milk to a mixing. This is not a mixing bowl. This is a pot. It's a pot. Add it to a pot and heat it over medium-low heat. Why is it taking so long for me to do anything right now? Bring it up to a simmer covered so that the crystals on the side of the pot wash down. And you want to bring this up to 230 degrees Fahrenheit. Whisk in some butter and turn the heat off. Just allow it to cool down while you whisk, 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 whisk. This is going to help cool down the praline topping and thicken it. You want it to have a somewhat opaque appearance once it's finished. It should be pretty thick by the time you're done whisking. Should hold its shape slightly, but still be fluid. Now, top your cooled cheesecake with those toasted pecans. You don't have to be so particular like I am with this design, but I mean, it's cute. You can just throw them on there if you want to, though. Once your pecans are in place, go ahead and drizzle all of that. Well, not all of it. Just drizzle like half of the praline topping over it. And then you can serve the rest as you serve your cheesecake. And that's it. You're ready to enjoy your sweet potato cheesecake with pecan praline topping. I'm drooling as I look at this. I'm sure you are too. Oh, child, look at this one. Yes. You can't even tell me that don't look good. Add more pecans or stuff, and of course, more drizzle. Always drizzle. Now, I know that just looking at this cheesecake evokes emotions inside of you that make you want to cry. Tears of joy, of course. There's really nothing I can do about that except tell you make it as soon as possible. In the meantime, let me answer some frequently asked questions that I get about this cheesecake. I realize that my process for making cheesecakes is labor intensive. It is what it is. If you want a cheesecake that doesn't crack, if you want a creamy cheesecake, you're going to have to take the time to make it. That time is well spent because you end up with a cheesecake that has a perfect topping, but you also get the results of a very creamy interior. For me, it is worth the effort and it's worth the time. The only thing I would recommend cheating with is the cool down period in the oven. Instead of turning off the oven and cooling it for an hour inside of the oven, you can decrease the cooling time to 30 minutes. But that's the only thing I would do. That's the only thing I would change. I would still chill it overnight because I've seen when some of my friends have been desperate to get to their cheesecake, they've only cooled it for about 6 hours and it still wasn't set up properly. So, if you choose not to do it, don't write me and tell me that my recipe failed because you didn't listen to me. Let's just settle that now. If you want to switch out the type of crust that you use for this sweet potato cheesecake, some of the cookies that I recommend are ginger snap cookies or Biscoff cookies. You could do vanilla wafers, but they don't really add much flavor-wise. Oatmeal cookies, those crisp oatmeal cookies. Yeah, I'm feeling like that's about it. Make sure that when you select the cookies that you're going to use for your cheesecake crust, that they are hard, crispy cookies. You can't use soft cookies because if you use soft cookies, you're going to end up with very soggy cheesecake crust and nobody wants that. So make sure, sneak before you buy the package and just like try to break them. And if they feel crunchy, then get them. Get that package that you were messing with. Don't leave that for somebody else. That's bad dessert karma. Don't do that. You don't have to use freshly pureed sweet potato. I do because I like the color that it gives to my cheesecake, and I like the flavor that it gives to my cheesecake. A lot of canned sweet potatoes are made by steaming inside of the can or steaming before it's canned. And to me, it dilutes the flavor of the sweet potato and it doesn't really come through in the cheesecake. You absolutely can use canned sweet potatoes if you don't feel like roasting your own sweet potato. Just drain the sweet potatoes of their liquid from the can and then mash them in. You can use a food processor or you can use a potato masher or a fork to mash it really smooth as you can get it, and just add that to the recipe. I really encourage you though, if you have the time, to roast your sweet potato and puree it. They just taste better. If you use canned sweet potatoes, be prepared that your cheesecake may not be as dark in color as mine is, just because again, boiling them or steaming them kind of dilutes that color. It extracts some of that beta carotene from the sweet potato. Now, if you want to be fancy and you want to use a different sweet potato, these are Beauregard sweet potatoes, the orangish, reddish sweet potatoes that most people see in the grocery store. You could also use ube, which is a purple sweet potato. You can use batata or boniato, which is a white sweet potato. Those aren't as sweet as Beauregards or ube are, so just be mindful of that. I think that's it. Yeah, those are all the sweet potatoes I would recommend. So yeah, that's how you can switch up your sweet potato, the look of your sweet potato cheesecake while still using sweet potatoes. A water bath is essential. You don't skip that step. Always bake your cheesecakes in a water bath because that is how you prevent the cheesecake from cracking. It provides an even, constant temperature in the oven where there's no fluctuations of the oven temperature that can, throw the cheesecake out of whack and cause it to crack. I just rhymed. I'm dropping fire lyrics. So you don't want to skip the bain-marie or the water bath. Always bake your cheesecakes in a water bath. But be sure when you're wrapping your cheesecake pan, make sure that you are wrapping it very snugly. There's no tears, no, little gaps to allow the water to seep in, or it could ruin, not ruin, but mess up potentially your cheesecake crust. Heavy duty cheesecake, or I like heavy duty cheesecake, but what I mean to say is heavy duty aluminum foil is what I recommend for wrapping the bottom of your cheesecake pans because it is stronger than the regular stuff and you don't have to be as gentle with it when you're wrapping your cheesecake pans. If you are using regular aluminum foil, go ahead, just do three layers of aluminum foil just in case, because there's nothing worse than unwrapping your cheesecake pan and like water coming out. It hurts your heart. It really does. I hate to see it. You don't have to do the concentric circles with your pecans like I do. I just like the way it looks. It's pretty. If we're honest, we cover the pecans with the praline topping, so it's not like you're really going to see it all, but for me, it's just, I like doing things pretty. You can even chop your pecans and just throw them on top of the cheesecake. I do strongly recommend toasting your pecans though. The pecans will have a stale flavor if you don't toast them. Even 10 minutes in a 350 degree oven, 180 degrees Celsius oven, will work wonders in allowing the oils in the pecans to heat up and make them fragrant. And it also just gives more flavor to the pecans. I would never add nuts to a recipe without toasting them first. It's just wasted effort in my opinion, because you're not getting the full potential, like you're not getting the full flavor of the nuts. So toast them. Take that time to toast them. You can replace the pecans in this recipe with your favorite nut. Walnuts, peanuts, pistachios, cashews are so good in this recipe. Of course, it won't be pecan praline topping. It'll be cashew praline or walnut praline. And I mean, it's still good. But just, yeah, do that. Toast them. I'm like a parent that says, do as I say, not as I do. That pot that I used in this video to make my praline topping, do not do that. Don't use a bigger pot than I used. I mean, I was really tempting fate with that. My toxic trait is I like to live on the edge when it comes to baking and cooking sometimes, and sometimes that is stupid. Don't do what I did. Use a much larger pot, because as you see, I was kissing the top of my pot with that praline topping. It could have easily bubbled over, caused a big mess. I would have cussed. I would have been pissed off. I would have been really mad. Yeah, don't do that. Use a bigger pot. You want to give yourself enough room to not feel stressed out, to not pull your praline topping too fast because it's bubbling over, right? I feel like I've made this so many times that I know exactly, I know which pot I can use to just barely get away with it. But don't do that. Don't stress yourself out like I do. The topping is going to bubble. The baking soda causes a chemical reaction that causes it to foam up. And especially after you add the butter, be mindful, keep your arms away from the top of the pot because steam is going to happen and you don't want to burn yourself. Take your time. You would rather heat it slowly on a lower flame than heat it too fast, because the caramel or because the sugar is going to burn if you heat it too fast. Make sure to keep the sides of your pot clean. I did that little trick where I covered it with the lid so that the steam that was created by the liquid would, settle onto the sides of the pot and wash down the sugar crystals. But you can also use a pastry brush and just brush the sides of the pot. Make sure you clean the bristles of the pastry brush frequently when you're doing that, because you don't want the grains of sugar to stick to the brush and then somehow fall back into the caramel after it's liquefied. Once that sugar is liquefied, don't stir it anymore, because if you do, you have the potential to cause crystallization. There's going to be a slight amount of sugar crystals in the praline topping, because that's what praline topping is like. You have little kind of minuscule crystals of sugar that provide some texture and contrast with the praline topping, but you don't want it to be excessive. So that's why it's important to wash the sides of your pot and get rid of any sugar crystals. If while the sugar is boiling, it starts to become sandy looking, it means that it's crystallized. It means that a grain of sugar has infiltrated the liquid and it's caused it to seize, because what crystals do is they link up together and it's just like this epidemic. It just spreads in the pot and causes all of the sugar crystals to crystallize and become sandy and just like hard. So you're gonna have to start over again. Hate to say it, but that's why it's important to make sure the sides of your pot are super clean. Once your sugar is melted and everything, the sides of the pot are clean as a whistle, you're going to want to boil it over medium-low heat. You could do medium if you're being vigilant, pay attention, until it reaches 230 degrees Fahrenheit or 110 degrees Celsius. Yeah, 110 degrees Celsius. If it goes a little bit over, that's great. Don't pull it at like 229 or 227. Wait until it hits at least 230 degrees, because that's when the caramel, the sugar, has reached a particular stage where it will actually hold its shape when it's cold. So you want it to have some body to it when it's cold. If you pull the sugar too fast or you add the butter at too early or too low a temperature, then it's going to remain a sauce even when it's cool. Not a bad thing at all. It's not going to be a deal breaker, but it won't set up the same way as praline topping will. And once you add that butter, be mindful that it's going to bubble, it's going to foam. It's going to be foaming already because, again, the baking soda is doing its thing. But when you add that butter, the water in the butter is going to create steam. So keep arms, faces, keep your body parts away from the steam, away from over the pot. Just be careful. Once you've finished adding the butter, you're going to whisk the praline topping like crazy. What you want to do is cool it, because as the sugar cools, it starts to firm back up and the butter is emulsified into the liquid the caramel liquid that you created. But as you cool it, the sugar crystals are going to firm back up and it's going to create this kind of thick, soupy, I'm going to spill it. It's going to create this thick sauce. Once you put it in the fridge, or once you put it on top of that very cold cheesecake, it's going to firm up and it's just going to be like pecan pralines in the heart of New Orleans. It's going to be amazing. You don't have to top your sweet potato cheesecake with the pecan praline topping. You can leave it naked. I mean, uncovered, unpralined if you want to. It's totally good by itself. You can store cheesecakes for 3 to 4 days in the fridge. What I do is I take wax paper or parchment paper and I press it against the interior where I've cut the cheesecake. And I also press it on the outside. That's something that we did in the pastry shop or in a bakery. Just keeps the exterior or the exposed part of the cheesecake from gumming over in the cold air of the refrigerator. So that's what I do. 3 days. You can also freeze cheesecake. For this particular cheesecake, I would freeze it before topping it with the pecan praline topping, just because it doesn't thaw in the same state as it would if you made it fresh and topped it fresh. Bake the cheesecake as normal, cool it in the fridge for, overnight, and then wrap it in plastic wrap. I would wrap it in a layer of foil just because I'm passionate about keeping my cheesecake tasting fresh. And then freeze it for 2 to 3 months. When you're ready to eat it, you just thaw it in the fridge overnight and top it with your pecan pralines and it's good to go. I do hope you try this sweet potato cheesecake with pecan praline topping. You are going to love it. This is a great recipe for Mardi Gras. This is a fantastic recipe to celebrate Black History Month, which we are still in the month of February as I post this recipe. But in general, it's just an amazing recipe to try any time of the year. So when you do, don't forget to let me know how you liked it. Leave me a comment in the comment section below. And while you're there, go up just a little bit and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you can get updates every time I post a new video. I would also appreciate it if you signed up for notifications, because I want to be all up in your business when you're laying in bed at night, should be going to sleep, but you're not. So you might as well watch me, right? I know. Praline. Of course, I would have a stupid unicorn pimple forehead. I was going to tell you something and I forgot. What was I going to say? Wrap it in plastic foil. Oh my God. Sometimes I just really irritate myself.